it became all up to me was pure unluck. There I stood. The entire championship rested on me. It was the first roll of the 10th frame, and I needed to get a strike, or at least pick up a spare, so that I could use my extra frame to put my team on top. I was a senior in college, and to fulfill my physical education requirements at the University of North Carolina, I took 2 semesters of bowling. Bowling 2 was winding down, and my randomly assigned team had been competing in a class-only, bracket-style championship for the past few weeks. I don't even remember if our team had a name. I only remember realizing in that moment that I would remember it and whatever happened for a long time to come. The bowling alley was silent, and all eyes were on me. Gutter ball. Then, repeat the scene all over again with even more stress. Another gutter ball. I share this story to illustrate a moment in my life where the following 2 things occurred with vivid clarity. 1, failure. A gutter ball when your team is hoping for an unlikely strike. And 2, learning. The inconsistent, disappointing, and potentially thrilling moment where you try to do something you do not know if you can do. My name is Prof10ch's, and this is my failure portfolio for the first class I ever taught, Digital Experiments in Museums and Libraries, which was at the University of Washington in the spring of 2015. Like the 10 frames in that championship bowling game, this quarter contained 10 weeks to try and roll strikes in class. And about as many folks were watching as were that spring day in 2001. Some days I rolled strikes, some days gutters, and most days somewhere in between. Every class was a learning experience, chock full of satisfaction, disappointment, and thrill that's inherent in learning, especially when others are watching. The following 3 questions were what I used to determine if something failed or not. Did it feel like a failure? Did I learn something? And if I did this again, would I change something about it? It's with these at top of mind that I present the following 5 things that failed. The first was the digital environment assessment. This was a total gutter ball. It was boring to do and boring to listen to, and I wouldn't do it again. In the future, I'd ask students to research awesome digital engagement projects currently happening in museums and libraries. This would have helped everyone with imagining possibilities for their own experiments and increase their knowledge of the field. Also, there's a 100% chance that their findings would have been more informative than presentations on what Facebook or Twitter is. That actually happened because I asked for it too. The second thing that failed was the noticing practice. This one wasn't a gutter ball, more like a 7-10 split. Students invested early, and one of the best conversations we had in class was about the effects of noticing a random object in our everyday lives. But over the course of the quarter, the intention of the project only worked for a few. Based on those it did work for, I think having the object of our noticing be meaningful, as opposed to totally random, is important. It may even need to be human-centric. And based on feedback from those it didn't work for, I think we could have talked more about it in class, so students could help and encourage each other. The third thing that failed was the undercover facilitator experiment. Students took a facilitation framework and used it in their own social networks, but most of their efforts fell flat as they were dropping into random threads where facilitation wasn't expected. We could have gone to pre-existing museum and library communities like ALA Think Tank or MuseTech, even their own cohort Facebook groups. Asking them to facilitate conversations around topics they already care about could have made their facilitation more targeted and interesting. A note on this failure, though, figuring this out early helped me adjust future assignments so they were field-specific, like the quit pitches, which turned out great. These participation issues reemerged once students launched their digital experiments, and this is the 4th failure. I fear students spent most of their energy trying to get participants instead of vetting and refining their project ideas. If I taught the class again, I'd have a plan for handling this issue. I'm not sure what would work, but here's some ideas. We could get local museums and libraries to buy in before class begins, or maybe recruit guinea pigs online from my own social network. Even asking a marketing class to take on the task of recruiting, or just starting the projects earlier might have been better. In the end, it's okay that everyone learned about how hard recruiting participants can be. Every practitioner has to climb that hill, even the ones that work at institutions with massive online followings. For me, it's more a question of which issue to tackle first, especially if you can only tackle one issue. And I think I'd rather have them test out their ideas than convince people to try them. The fifth and final failure is that I think the class may have been too easy. I'm an informal educator where work and motivations are self-directed, and as a practitioner, I don't believe in busy work. I hate it, actually, to a fault some instances. And so the last thing I wanted to do was give students more work just because I could. But after being in this formal structure all quarter, I can see the point of assigning more work in readings. I don't want to eke all the safety and fun out of class, but I do wonder if the students would have taken away more had I asked more from them. So, if you throw in a few strikes for things that work great, like students feeling safe to fail, our format of drawing, writing, and walking in nearly every class, the interviews for museum and library practitioners, the general class levity and vibe, my powers to withstand complete awkwardness, and the touch points to reflective practice that they now have going forward in their lives, I'd say I didn't fare too poorly for my first game. I'm even considering joining a league.